Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate everyone attending today, and obviously appreciate Scott joining me on the announcement today. We're certainly excited to announce a new sponsorship agreement with University of Louisville Athletics. In our department, Dan Furman and Michael Dudas out of our Cardinal Athletic Fund, and I teamed up with Scott Schoenberger, our CEO of AJS Hotels, the Al Sneeder Company, and Skip James, his Vice President of Sales and Marketing of AJS Hotels, as well, to develop a partnership with the Galt House that we think will span more than the 10 years that's in the agreement, but certainly today we're talking about a 10-year agreement. The value of the naming rights gift is $3.5 million from the Galt House, and while the timing may seem a little awkward with the COVID-19, we've been working on this agreement for a long time. We've certainly paid attention to what's happened in the renovation of the Galt House and the hotel and so forth. And, we decided today was a good day to have some good news for once in the media. So, we decided to go ahead and jump on and do it today. The primary use of the gift to go towards the renovation of the Planet Fitness Kiever Center, which we've talked about in past press conferences, that houses our men's and women's basketball team and our women's lacrosse team. And we certainly have some notion and some ideas about how to upgrade that. And that project design is nearing completion. And then at that point, we'd move to construction bids. And then at the appropriate time, then we talk about construction. But at the time, we've had, many of our capital projects we've had idle during this period. So, but as part of the agreement with the Galt House, they become the naming rights partner for the east and west side suites at the Cardinal Stadium. There'll be proper signage throughout all the stadium, but particularly in those suite areas. And their brand name will be visible in other areas in the stadium, but also on the suite tickets themselves. And I think as the Galt House has undergone, and Scott can talk about this, a significant an $80 million renovation and rebranding of one of the mainstay hotels in Louisville and the U.S., it fits with what we're doing and all the visitors and fans that we have come through our facilities. So the hotel has always had a great presence in downtown Louisville. Certainly the agreement avails them the opportunity and another great Louisville venue, ours, the Cardinal Stadium, to market themselves to, as I mentioned, to our fans and to our visitors alike. So most people know about our football games we host there and the Trinity Saints game, but we host over 150 events per year in that stadium, and their brand will certainly be visible to all those visitors and the many supporters that we have of the athletic department. But as the company took on the project of rebranding and renovation, we certainly closely followed everything and visited the hotel many times during its renovation. Scott took us through tours. Skip did as well. We got to see how the restaurants and the different areas were evolving, but particularly the ballroom, which we have a number of events that would be useful there. So if you haven't been in the hotel, the end product is certainly amazing. So what they've done to upgrade, that property in downtown, albeit pretty awesome, the amenities now to us are second to none. And while my favorite part might be the bourbon bar, we won't be using that for the recruitment of our student athletes. I'll just meet Scott there occasionally. On a personal note, though, I've known Scott and a number of the Sneeder family members for a number of years and was fortunate enough to spend time on the Al J. Sneeder Trust Board. So the property itself, the management team, were already familiar to me and got a chance to introduce them to the rest of the team here. And on the business side, the partnership that we developed and are announcing today is meaningful to us in many ways, not just beyond the financial side and what we're doing with the Kiever Center, but having the ability to expand our athletic events like the kickoff luncheon, tip-off luncheon, lead-off dinner, all those things that we host into their ballrooms is pretty awesome because the seating capacity is significantly greater than what we had with the Marriott, almost 50% greater. And that means we'll be able to avail more fans to participate in these key events. So the hotel comes into play when we'll be hosting, our recruits on behalf of our athletic teams, but also recruitment of staff to our athletic department. And it's been a lot of fun collaborating with Scott and his team on what we could do with the hotel. But, for that, I'll turn it over to Scott for some general comments as well.
Scott, if we could pause just a moment, please, just to give those capturing video a chance to switch the pinning of the video. Give you all a couple seconds there.
And I don't see him worthy. I do not see him.
Eddie's right.
You might want to say a few words just to pop to the screen.
Right under Scott there.
I'll give it a shot. Is that helping? Am I popping up?
Yeah, sure did.
Okay. Okay, great.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Certainly.
All right, I think we've given time. Scott, you got the floor.
Thank you. Vince, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And Vince, thank you for your really kind words and your support. And as you said, this has been a long road for us, working through this, and we've loved all the support that we've had and the input and the collaboration that we've had between our two teams. I'm actually sitting right now, you're getting a sneak peek at the east lobby of the hotel, which we're finishing up. If you hear a little construction noise, we've still got work going on over here. But we've undergone a pretty significant renovation, and I call it really a transformation for the hotel. This has been a very long-standing, the family and the shareholders dating back all the way to Mr. Sneeder have always been avid supporters of the University of Louisville, and we're really excited to be able to strengthen that relationship for the long term. This is a long-term local company. We're still family-owned. This company's been around for 73 years. That's how old we are. And the Galt House obviously dates back to 1835, but we're not quite that old. We date back to 1947 when Mr. Sneeder first started doing his construction. And the family's been in the construction business long before Mr. Sneeder was around. And we have a lot of that highlighted throughout the property. So we feel that this is a real blessing for us. We're very humbled that the university would come forward and want to work with us. And I think a big part of that is because we really have brought Louisville and Kentucky to the forefront of everything that we're doing at this hotel, in terms of the design work that we've done, in terms of the companies that we've hired. I mean, we're spending well in excess of $80 million, and our focus has really been what it was for Mr. Sneeder, and that is to support the local community, put people to work, make an investment in our own backyard. And a lot of the craftsmen and trade workers that we have working with us today, and the designers, everything across the board that we possibly can, we've utilized Louisvillians for that, and people from southern Indiana. And it's great to see them walking around now as we're getting close to being finished. We'll be completed by the end of October. It's really exciting, but they take so much pride in what it is that they're doing here, because they're really part of an iconic brand, and really we call it a legend. It's legendary Louisville, and Louisville really is a legendary and iconic city, as is the University of Louisville. So, Al started this project in 1972 with the West Tower, really did something spectacular for the city by bringing us back to the river, and then added on the East Tower in 1985 and waterfront. And today the family still owns that same group of assets and a few other things. So the pride that exists for us and the ability to be able to showcase everything that we do, because it is a new place. It is going to be new, but we want to be approachable. We are Kentucky. We are the local company. And look, Louisville is absolutely one of the main economic engines of this city. And to be able to affiliate with the sports program and with the university for that play on that national stage and perform to the level that they perform at, our objective now is to put that same quality of product out in front of our guests that the U of L athletes and the U of L students put out whenever they're out competing or whenever they're in school. And this is all about building a stronger and better community. That's what Mr. Sneeder was all about, was to build a very strong community. We're involved in a lot of other areas. As Vince said, this could be looked at as kind of an awkward time, but we've been working on this, Vince, I think for probably 9 or 10 months. Yep. And so we tried to be very, very sensitive to that. Vince and I have collaborated about it. But sooner or later, one of the things I told Vince was, we really need to give some good news. We need to show that we're moving forward and that we're working together, and that, overall, we always will prevail. I'm an outsider to Louisville. I wasn't born here. I'm originally from Colorado, and I have to tell you, I am proud to say that I live in this city and I live in this state, and the people here are just spectacular. So thank you for your time today, and I'll turn it over to any questions that you may have for me before we give it back to Vince.
And any questions for Scott, go to him first. Questions?
Yeah, I was from the Career Journal. Scott, I'm interested in trying to get a handle on timing of this announcement, given the issues downtown. Seems like an unusual commitment with all the uncertainty that we're facing. What was it that led you to do it now?
Well, I mean, we're moving forward. School is getting ready to start back up, whether that's virtually or in person. Sports are still being planned today. And I'll go back to, we've been around here for 73 years now. And so, this is a long-term commitment. So we're not looking at anything in a narrow or short-term horizon. And I think the most important thing for us to do is to let people know that, the city is coming forward. It will do well. I mean, we haven't boarded up the Galt House. We haven't done any of that. So we're very, very actively involved in the local community, be that in West Louisville or any other area, Simmons College, you name it. So we are locally focused. So, and sooner or later you have to put the news out. And so we just decided this actually was going to be announced in June, was originally when we had talked about it. So we've tried to push it back, school starting back in probably 5 or 6 weeks. So, we're moving forward. We signed this agreement before the coronavirus actually came upon our doorstep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again with WLKY, is there a concern about attracting new business with what's happened downtown, and many of the buildings are still boarded up, and there's a sense, at least among some, that there's going to be a reluctance to bring new business in? How do you guys manage that and before it goes sideways?
We've been working proactively with meeting planners, and also working very closely with the mayor's office and with state and city government in terms of what's going on. And again, also working with the various organizations. I've actually attended a couple of rallies in West Louisville with Reverend Elliott. I'm very actively involved in King Solomon Church. And I think the main thing that we've got to do is continue to have dialogue and reassure people that, look, we're progressing, and we are as a society, as a city, we're working to try and get these issues resolved, be that with David James or Mayor Fisher or whomever that is. We have regular dialogue that goes on about that. I can't, the board, having things boarded up is definitely an issue for us, and I won't downplay that in any way. That does not show the city in a good image, and it does give people some level of discomfort. But then again, I also have to say we're not the only city that is currently in this type of environment. And at the end of the day, the people in Louisville are just great people. And like a lot of areas, we have got serious issues that we've got to get addressed. And as I tell Reverend Elliott, what we've got to do is fix it. That's the phrase that I use with him. Rather than talk about it, we really have to make the efforts to fix it. So there's been a tremendous amount of dialogue about that. And I think what people get frustrated with is dialogue and not action. And so, and the business leaders and the community leaders have to get together to help support that and make those things happen. You're welcome.
Any further questions for Scott?
Tim Sullivan again. I just was curious, their naming rights for the stadium at large are still available. Was that ever a consideration, or is that too big a bite for the Galt House? We first of all never had that conversation, and this is, I think, one of the more substantial gifts that have been provided to the university and to the sports program. But quite honestly, we may be the L.J. Schneider Company, but we're certainly not the size of
of, let's say, the Yum Center, which is adjacent to us, or the other naming rights that were on Cardinal Stadium before. So, part of my job is to make sure that what we're doing is accretive to the company and that we're spending our money wisely. And what's good for the community and for the community relationships also have to be good for business because they all work together. So we were really focused on this program. This is what they approached this with. And I think they understood. Vince knows the company. So he understands our bandwidth. He's a great businessman. And so he knew his audience when he walked in the door. I have to say that. He did his due diligence.
Thank you.
Anything further for Scott? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Scott. I'll give, again, everybody a moment to switch their pinning to Vince. Vince, speak just a little bit so we make sure that they've got you on screen.
Kenny Klein is my boss.
Yeah, I command you to speak, yes. All right,
All right, I think,
good.
yeah.
All right, we'll take questions now for Vince.
Vince, Tim Sullivan, just to follow up on what I asked Scott about the naming rights for the stadium. Where does that stand? And do you expect to have a resolution by the time the season opens, if it opens as scheduled?
Yeah, no, we've tabled it, Tim. I think in lieu of what's going on in the economy as much as society, that we tabled that discussion. So would have loved to continue that conversation and keep it going. But I think at this point we've stepped back from it and just felt like we'll come back to it at a different time. So with that being said, the obvious is no, we won't have a name on that stadium when we start at football.
Okay, thank you.
That's Calgill, WLKY. Just your take on the landscape with the countdown continuing to the drop dead week, that first week of August. Where do you think you guys stand right now in terms of a schedule, starting football, much less anything else, in any way, shape, or form on time?
Yeah, addressing the fall sports first, I think you probably saw the ACC push back to September 1st. We felt like that was more appropriate, kind of get that in line with football at the time. It gave us a little bit of time for the campuses to get acclimated, as most startup classes. We start August 17th. And then on football, I think probably in conjunction with the other sports too, is a bigger discussion at the end of the month. And I know John Swafford, our commissioner, put out a note last week after the Big Ten made their announcement about conference only. We weren't really, going down that path. As you could tell, there was no announcement pending, and or really it wasn't our first consideration. So the end of the month is more of a time frame for us to come out with anything that I would say formal. And then, as you can probably guess, we'll adjust if we have to.
Vince, Ken Spencer with WHAS 11. How concerning, or how much do you guys watch the numbers? The numbers seem to be on the rise across the country. Hospitalizations seem to be going up. I mean, how much is that something that you guys closely monitor when thinking about what you guys will do with fall sports?
Yeah, I think we do monitor that, Ken. I mean, I look at it particularly here in Kentucky, but you have to look at it elsewhere because the conference spans 10 states. Even if we were to follow the Big Ten methodology, we're in multiple states, so you have to follow them. You've certainly seen what's going on in Miami, Florida, Boston. We've got some cities that are hotspots where we have some of our ACC members, so that makes things difficult. But I think the other thing that the complexity of it, that we're somewhat spoiled with the luxury of U of L Health. We have access to tests and we have quick turnarounds. So usually our tests are coming back in hours. Whereby we have some schools in the conference in the Carolinas that have difficulty with not so much the test, but getting the turnaround of the test results. So, that's got to level itself out because, as we're creating, minimum standards, medical standards for all of us to compete, those things have to sort themselves out. And, we do have a tight window to get there for September 2nd against North Carolina State.
Vince, Fred Cowgill again. How much will the governors play a role in this? As an example, obviously the conference covers a lot of states and some are worse off than others. You traveling to a Clemson, just as an example, would Governor Beshear say, I'm not letting my guys do that? How does all that work?
Yeah, I think we certainly are, as I've said before, I'm no genius in this expert, so we'll rely on the government and medical professionals to help us make our decisions and the input they have. And it varies state by state because you have some states who say no fans, some say fans. Right now we're, presumably 50%, but, having gone to the Louisville City game on Sunday, it was probably a third of capacity because of the social distancing. So, it's going to vary by state. If you get into some real hot spots and they say no fans, that may go a step further. I think the thing for me to watch as much as that information is making sure that campuses can really restart, if you will, that we do have some form of hybrid model of students on campus and watching how that plays out. Our student athletes in our bubble, we've had great success with our programs here on the return to campus. Not every school has, but it is a worry when large student bodies get back in close quarters on a campus. Making sure the precautions and measures work out well there is what I'll be watching.
Vince, this is
Cameron with the Courier Journal.
Go ahead, Cameron. Go ahead, Cameron.
All right, sorry. Okay. You mentioned how so many guidelines are different in so many different states. When you guys have these conversations within the ACC and other athletic directors, how difficult is it to come up with a plan knowing that something might be different for Kentucky, that might be different for South Carolina and Florida and some of the other states?
Well, I think the premise is you're planning for better times. I think you don't plan for what the worst is for each of the states. I think your plan is set if things are in control, if things are in a stable environment. If they're not, I don't foresee us kicking off. I think that's, in my mind that, I think the plans we're putting in place and thinking about are pretty responsible and thoughtful, but those are under what I would deem more stable conditions. And if they're not stable, then I think you're going to see delays.
Vince, is Dominic Yates with the Courier Journal. You just mentioned that Lou City soccer match. After experiencing that, does it make you maybe more comfortable about fans in the stands and how you might want to attack that when football season around, or does it change at all?
No, I was encouraged, Dominique. When I got there, I had my mask on as I got out of the car and walked to the gate, but I was slow to walk so I could take it in. I wanted to look around, watch how things are being handled, watch how people walked up and had their temperature taken, and then how they moved to the security gate. Were they adhering to the social distancing markings on the ground? How was the staff handling that? I mean, I won't bore you with all the details, but as I've entered it, even going to the concession areas, really, I thought they did a terrific job. And I thought fans were, frankly, I thought the fans were outstanding wearing their mask. I mean, it was literally, you see people holding their mask up or to the side as they took a drink or had a bite to eat. But it was, I thought people really behaved as they should. And to me, that was encouraging.
And it's Tim Sullivan again. There were 4,800 and change there. That's a little less than a third of capacity. Have you done the calculations on how many you could legitimately fit into Cardinal Stadium if you maintain social distancing?
We haven't specifically, Tim, because as we got through our ticket renewals, what you really do is you see like families, if they have, you probably saw this at soccer. One thing I did note was there was a lot of 2-seat season ticket holders. When you looked around the stadium, there was a lot of people who just had 2 seats, where that's not normally the case at our football games where families have 4 and 6 seats. But, that takes down your population, because as I noticed, they had 3 seats between people. And if you've got 2, but you've got to put 3 between every seat, not 3 between every seat, 3 between, I'll say, family members, you're going to bring down your attendance significantly. And that's one of the things that I did note, on Sunday would probably be different for us. I mean, I can speak to myself. We've got 8 together as a family. If families are allowed to go with each other, I just think our ability to move up the number, a percentage of capacity improves. But we've not run that against it. We actually have meetings, as you can imagine, this week and all the scenario planning.
Vince, this is Kent Taylor from Wave TV. As much as the football season means to your athletic budget, do you have any kind of insurance if there's not, Wimbledon had some infectious disease insurance or something. Do you have anything like that? Is there something available for you to protect you if there's not a football season?
I'm hoping Wave has a product. No, there's not. We haven't. This is such an unforeseen incident that, people have had, you talk about trip insurance and things like that, and some people do insure events, but this is not something that I think anyone was prepared for, to have this kind of insurance, this kind of business interruption insurance. I think, we're now finding, I think, as every school is looking at their game contracts, just in case, to see what they have, language and things like that. If we were to get into a situation, I don't know how, the Big Ten obviously announced their conference only, so they've had to take a look at their own game contracts with non-conference. But all of these things are being vetted within the conference, and I think probably across, frankly, the Autonomy 5, the Power 5.
Vince, Stanford, which has a $27 billion endowment, cut 11 sports, which was kind of stunning. Do you feel as if your sports are still solid, or as this goes on, are you maybe going to be forced to make some deeper cuts?
No, we have 23 sports. 6 of them are tightly commingled with track being indoor and outdoor men's, women, and cross-country men's, women. We have 6 of them that really fall under the guidance of Dale Cowper, our head coach there. So we have 17 head coaches. It's not been something I've even taken a minute to calculate, to be honest. I'm not trying to be fiscally irresponsible. It's just not something that I've seen that I thought would benefit us. A lot of these sports are partial scholarships. The lack of tuition that the university would receive if they weren't here. There's a number of things to take into account that my top of mind thought felt like it's not in the best interest of us to go down that path at this point.
Hey, Vince, Cam with the Courier Journal again. When you see kind of all the, the models, or I know there was a report today about pods in the ACC in terms of geographical pods for scheduling and things of that nature. When you see all that, kind of what are your thoughts? I know obviously ACC hasn't made a decision yet, but I'm just curious your thoughts on that and kind of what you think would work best for not just Louisville, but just the ACC in general.
Well, probably what worked best, since we have the lowest numbers of cases, is many of those schools should relocate inside our state. We'll cut down travel expenses. It'll be good for the economy. Oh, you mean a broader question?
You can fill out the Galt House.
They can stay at the Galt House while they find a new campus. No, we have a pod system that was created for women's basketball, so that's probably how that got started. We moved to these 3 pods of 5, if you will, and we're in the north with the typical what I would deem north schools with Notre Dame, Syracuse, Boston College, Pittsburgh. That's probably where that kind of conversation gets out there, but it's difficult for us in our location that we're not exactly driving distance in this conference to many of these, schools easily drivable. We could certainly do it, but I think that is something that puts pressure on some of the amount of sports, is the idea of how you travel around to some of these locations, particularly when you've got, from Syracuse to Miami, we're up and down the whole East Coast.
Vince, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have kind of acted independently. The other 3 Power 5 conferences really haven't made any major decisions regarding pushing back to the spring or limiting conference games. How are you coordinating among those conferences, and do you expect a cohesive plan to emerge anytime soon?
Yeah, I think in terms of timing, starting there, Tim, I would say I think the end of the month is still a fair timeline that the commissioner put out. We have had very productive calls. In terms of cohesiveness, I know that the A5 commissioners are meeting on a regular basis a few times a week, and that Commissioner Swafford's good about bringing information back to us. What the output is and things being considered, particularly when it gets into the medical advisory groups of each of the Power 5 conferences. But in terms of scheduling, the Big Ten kind of had their own decision what they wanted to do. It was probably, I thought the conferences would be more in sync, but we're not, at least from that get-go. But I think from the ACC, and probably from what I read from Greg Sankey on the SEC, that we felt we still had a window of time to really give it some consideration, particularly as there was some expected spike, but we get a gauge of how that thing's going to spike and, frankly, how the states and schools are going to react.
Time for one more question. Anyone?
Vince Cameron again from the Courier Journal. I know obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of athletes and parents who really have no clue what's going on or what's going to happen. How do you talk to them about this, or kind of how do you give them updates with this? Really, kind of everything changes so quickly.
Yeah, well, even earlier today, we had a call with our head coaches. We had a call with our whole athletic department. I'm giving them the State of the Union on a whole variety of topics, from certainly football and fall sports to where we are in our diversity efforts, where we are in the notice of allegation. It doesn't matter. All the topics that I'm pretty wide open about, we discuss. And I'd like to believe that one of our goals is that, we share the organizational playbook. So that's a value here that we do. And as far as student athletes, we're on calls with them. Every Friday, I do a little bit of a pick-me-up at 12:30. Every Friday, I do a robocall where I give them a kind of a 2-minute message of going into the weekend and staying in touch. And I try to hit on a few highlights with them. I do that with staff going forward. So you can't communicate enough. It's a stressful situation for a parent, a student athlete, certainly administrator. Talked to an AD last night. Same situation. This is unique, and I think it can be taxing. I do worry about mental health of people that they're built to compete and they're not getting to compete, or they can't see it in front of them, and it's stressful. And particularly with all that they read or see on in the media is good reason to be spooked a bit. Kent?
Yeah.
Last one, Kent.
Yeah, just Vince, I know it doesn't go hand in hand, but with the cuts that you guys made or cutbacks that you guys had to make in June, just what kind of message do you think today's announcement with the gift from the Galt House, $3.5 million, sends to your athletic department in the midst of a pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think, we've talked about that. I would say that to Scott's point, I'd say the headline is good news, because I think what our staff worries about, Kent, at times is the support. They certainly worry about the revenue of football and what could happen there, but they also do worry about the amount of corporate support, what happens in that regard, and the community support, that it would be ongoing, that they, do they view this athletic department as a franchise in itself, a part of this university. And, it's not a time to turn off your support. And, particularly we're in a time of need as much as anyone else. And we've, as everybody knows in this athletic department, we've stressed ourselves over the last few years in making some pretty strong moves. And those weren't easy on our balance sheet reserves. So, I can't tell you how appreciative our staff is today when we talk about this kind of support from the Galt House. And particularly as not just to reemphasize Scott's words, it's a local company who knows us well. I'm familiar with them personally and vice versa. And it's really it's uplifting, I can say that. And it may appear that it smacks that we're cutting and yet receiving money towards a facility, but I think people understand the value of our basketball franchise here too, and they don't want to see that support dwindle.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Vince, thanks for taking the time. Scott, thank you for being with us and for the gift from the Galt House. We appreciate it very much. And that'll conclude us for today.
Thank you.